there, I want to done it. Get down there. Some of it in the Tibetan. They didn't in the church, some moved out a lot. In it, gave us a mamma, cat, church, some moved out a lot. Someone got it in a table. Then taking the other thing in a lot. Miss was a lay, Miss was a carbon. They took out a lot. Lama come get the phone with someone people in the so to get lead and cover the them here with the cake. Then tell the cups a lot, and lead and cover the solid. Lead and cover them.
The pointing out of the nature of students' minds is very, very famous, spoken about all the time. In fact, the situation is that most holy beings, when they teach, are doing this constantly, every time they teach. But it is necessary for students to receive teaching and instructions from as great a number of eminent masters as possible. Because karma and karmic connections are individual. And even though essentially what all great masters are pointing out is the same thing, the same nature, it is not necessarily the case that a student is going to recognize their mind's nature every time it's pointed out by any master. They will recognize that nature without great difficulty, however, when it is pointed out by that master or those masters to whom they have, or with whom they have, a strong karmic connection. This has always been recognized by our tradition, and therefore it was customary, as we can read in the biographies of great teachers, that lamas used to predict to one another where they should go to receive further instruction. Perhaps the most famous example of this is Jetsun Milarepa, who was told by one of his first teachers, Rongchon Laga, that he should go to Lord Marpa to receive profound instruction. There's a great reason for this. It's not the case that Rongchon Laga was himself an unrealized or an incompetent teacher. Far from it. Because of his realization, because of his competence, he was able to see that Milarepa had a karmic connection with Lord Marpa that was unique, and that therefore his attending Lord Marpa would bring a greater result. So in this case, when teachers send their disciples or students to other teachers, it's not because they are incompetent themselves, it's because they are in fact so competent that they recognize the karmic propensities of the student and know where to direct them. Because you might receive pointing out instruction in the most formal and elegant manner from many teachers, but it will be very difficult for you to actually recognize your mind's nature unless you have a strong karmic connection with the master who is pointing it out. When you do have such a karmic connection, then the identification process, the pointing out and recognition process, is actually very easy. In a single instant, recognition of the mind's nature is gained. And in fact, it's possible for one to achieve Buddhahood in a single instant. On the other hand, it's very difficult to gain any kind of recognition of your mind's nature from the teachings of a teacher with whom you have no karmic connection. We therefore have the saying, you may have 100 teachers who have achieved the bodhisattva levels, but among them there will be only one who points out the nature of your mind to you. So it's not necessarily the case that the teacher who points out your name, the nature of your mind, is more attained than the others, but he or she will be the one with whom you have the greatest karmic connection. Now, if I use myself as an example, I'm here because you all, to some degree, like me and have some degree of faith in me. I'm here to teach, and you're here because presumably you want to learn Dharma so that you can achieve liberation. The amount of benefit you'll derive from my teachings or those of anyone else really depend upon your karmic connection, which will manifest as your degree of faith. If you have great faith in what I have taught or in what anyone else teaches, you will recognize your mind's nature through these teachings. Now, one of the great advantages of this country is freedom, which means you have the right, morally and legally, to choose your teachers, to study with anyone you want to. You can observe your own karmic propensities. You can observe the direction, natural direction of your faith, and recognize where you want to study, with whom you want to study, and what you want to practice. Remember that you should follow this inclination and follow your faith, because recognition will be difficult under the tutelage or instruction of someone in whom you have less faith, and far more easy under the instruction of one in whom you have great faith. It is essential that no one ever prevent beings from making this choice for themselves. To in any way obstruct beings from choosing where and what they practice and whom they study with is a grave and evil sin, because it is to destroy their possibility for virtue. When a teacher says, "You must henceforth study only with me," they are violating the most fundamental principles of the Buddha's teachings. Therefore, when you are engaged in study, study as widely as possible, free from any sectarian prejudice. When you come to practice, practice from among all the teachings you've received whatever helps your mind the most. Because the point is to free yourself from samsara so that you can free other beings from it. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by practicing what really works.